My job is to somehow make them curious enough or persuade them by hook or crook to get more aware of themselves and where they came from and what they are into and what is already there, and just to bring it out. This is what compels me to compel them, and I will do it by whatever means necessary.
Welcome to the Black Girls Heal podcast, where we talk about healing our intimacy disorders, unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first ourselves and then others. Every episode, we will talk about advice you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow in your self-worth. I'm Sheena Lachey, love addiction coach and trauma specialist. Let's begin. Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Black Girls Heal. So today we're talking about sisterhood. We are talking about friendship. In these current times, something that I've heard over and over again, more so than we already hear it, is the importance of community, the importance of building our social network, our friendships, our chosen family, and our community resources to feel supported, to feel safe, to feel seen. And all of that is absolutely true. And I know for those of us who are listening, some of us are very lucky when it comes to this. We have deep friendships that we may have had for a long time from childhood, or we may have found our chosen family of friends older in life as adults, older adults, or somewhere in between. And some others of us, we are still on that journey. We may be people who know lots of people, but we don't really have people who are our best friends or people that we know that we can count on. We may be folks who don't quite know a lot of people, and so we don't have that community. And people who are a little bit in between, people that you don't even know if the people around you are those that you can trust. So for today's episode, I want to focus on how do we heal in community and give you 7-ish tips to help you work through that. So at the beginning, I'm going to tell you where to find community. I'm going to tell you different options with that. There may be some things that you've heard of and things that you haven't. But the reason why I want to focus on how to heal in a community is 2 reasons. One, I will often come across students, friends, colleagues, other people who you'll meet friends, you'll meet people that you really click with and you want to connect with, and it's very hard to get it going. And also it's pretty triggering to you, right? So your same wounds that make it hard for you to trust people in the first place, they are amplified in your quest to make these friendships. So what I really want to talk about here are some things for you to keep in mind as you're building friendships to hopefully help you buffer some of the hurt that may happen so that you don't give up and you don't feel overwhelmed. The other reason why I really want to talk about this is if you've been following me for a while, you've heard me say many, many times that you heal intimacy disorders in community. All of the solo work of reading about love addiction, reading about anxious attachment, reading about avoidant attachment, and you formulating your own personal plan to go out into the world to heal your intimacy disorder is incomplete. Even if you have a really incredible therapist, even if you're in one of my coaching programs where I help you with these things, you have to be able and open to talk with other people to bring them to be a part of this journey. Because when we think about what an intimacy disorder is, it is this intense fear, discomfort, anxiety around being vulnerable, about being seen, not knowing whether or not you can trust people. And you don't get those things healed when you're solo dolo in your own little bubble. Those things get healed in community. So it's all about you learning how to find the right people to practice with, the right people to let in to test out these things, to test out the tips and tricks and tools and resources that people have shared with you, and learning how to practice your own self-soothing work, but again, to do that in safe spaces. So again, I'm going to talk more about that after the jump, but that is what we are talking about today, using community as a healing tool and how to make sure that you come out on the good side of this as well. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Before we get started, let's take a small break to say thank you to this week's sponsors. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to jump right in because I have several other tips and things and tools that I want to give you, things to keep in mind to make sure that when you find these friendships, that there are some that you actually can cherish and grow in over time. And so I'm going to start off with saying, where do you find friends? And so these are things that you've heard before. This episode is focused on how to maintain the friendship. So if y'all would like an episode where I talk more about the introduction and the initial cultivation of that, then let me know. But where you find friends, here are some examples: healing circles, Bible studies, group therapy, sister circles, game nights, brunches, social clubs. Okay. So, healing circles, for those of you who don't know, back during COVID, when the world was first falling apart, I published and had several episodes where I talked about building healing circles, which are basically a hybrid of group therapy. What I really loved from when I had my small group Bible studies as well. And basically, you come together for a short period of time, 6 to 8 weeks, to talk about topics related to healing your trauma, to growing together, to psychoeducational and social support and healing, but you're doing real deep and true work. In that workbook, and this is still available on Amazon, I'm planning on republishing it with some revisions to the plan on how to do a healing circle and also some additional lessons. But it's available on Amazon for those who are interested. The Black Girls Heal Healing Circle workbook, and it's Volume 1 Foundations. So during that time when we were really, really needing community, I really wanted to create a resource so that for the people that you have around you, now is the time for you. Everyone was doing self-reflection work even more so than they had done in times before. And people were really needing to have those connections. And so I know from my own personal and professional experience that those type of environments are just so helpful. And if you are, I think sometimes some of us can have friends where we can go to parties together, we can hang out together, we can even talk about career and advancement and, stacking money together, but they may not be the friends who want to go deeper into matters of the heart, that are not looking at the same things that we are in that area. There are different levels and different types of friends and connections that some of us have. Some of us are lucky enough to have all those things in one person or in a few people, but some of us have to have different sets of friends that have different levels of depth or interest in what we are interested in, and that's okay. So healing circles are great if that is what you're looking for. And then after that, of course, is group therapy. So group therapy is a paid version of that is facilitated by a therapist. Usually with group therapy, it's either based on a certain topic. So maybe it's a grief circle, maybe it's a self-love circle, maybe it's a childhood trauma circle, but it's facilitated by a therapist that has a curriculum that you follow either strongly or loosely, and you come together for a set period of time to work through that curriculum and provide process-oriented support. So what that means usually is that the therapist is not necessarily there to teach you a full lesson for that time. There might be an intro lesson, it might be an opening thing for you to discuss, but really it's about you talking within each other. And if one person shares what they're feeling or thinking, the other people in the group are there to provide their own feedback and their thoughts and their encouragement and their challenges about what that person is saying. I've also said this before, group therapy is known, scientifically proven, to help people progress faster than individual therapy. Because as humans, we are meant to live in community. Those of us who live solo and without community, even those of us who are introverts, for the most part, it is due to trauma. It's because community has proven to be unsafe to us. And so rightfully so, we will isolate or keep our circle very small. That doesn't mean that that's how we are intended to live as human beings, which is why we get so much better and we feel so much fulfilled and we feel so much less burnt out when we have people that we can trust around us, when we have people who pour and love us deeply, when we find those soulmate connections and deep platonic, loving sisterhood friendship outside of ourselves is one of the most precious gifts, right? So that is one version of group therapy. The other version of group therapy that is not curriculum based is and maybe open-ended. So it is that y'all all come every week just to talk about what's going on. So you're going around a circle, maybe giving updates on what's happening, but it's the same thing. Each person is giving process, support, encouragement, challenging, sharing jokes, letting you know you're going to be okay, talking about a time that they've been okay. And you have a therapist there who's there to make sure for those people who may be anxious about this process. And there's a therapist there to make sure that it stays a safe space, that even if there are some moments of contention or stress, that you can work through that. right? So if anyone has ever seen a flyer or a therapist in your area, or you follow anyone who's doing a group therapy group and you didn't really know what it was about, now you know. And so a lot of times you can emerge out of those groups and find people who are really great friends. Same thing with the healing circle. Sometimes you do healing circles with people that you already know. Sometimes you search and you find folks that have one that's already established, and you'll just like, you walk into a room with a whole bunch of people. You may be a hobbyist and you go to an event and a gathering where everybody there loves to crochet. Everybody there is an artist and loves to paint. Everybody there loves cigars, right? One of my really good girlfriends is into cigars. That doesn't mean that you're going to like everybody in that room. And so I'm kind of already getting into the tips a little bit, but make sure you don't set your expectations so that you have to like everyone, or in this room of 200 people, you leave with 20 contacts, right? You might just leave with one or two, and that's okay, because we want to make sure that we have quality versus quantity when it comes to building friendships. The healing circle, the reason why I also qualify group therapy as a paid option is because, you're paying for the expertise and therapeutic support, clinical support of your therapist. Healing circles can be done on your own. That was my intention with publishing that book. At the time that I published the book, I'd also started a directory for people to find their own folks and get together at that time. I do hope to bring some type of option like that back, in addition to publishing books and you just gathering your friends and y'all creating your own. I think that would be really great. But yeah, that's a way that you can take your already pre-existing friendships, especially if they're giving you signs that they're good friends for you, and taking what might be a little bit superficial and, going from there if they're open to it. If they're open to it, is going to come back later on when I start to give the tips. Bible studies are classically a really great place to find friendships with people who are like-minded, who have the same values. And so when I say Bible studies, I mean any type of religious-based social and learning groups. So there are meditation groups at different temples. There are all kinds of different classes and stuff. So whatever relates to your belief system and what works for you, going to those things and finding friends there. Game nights, brunches, and social clubs. This is often what I see, around social media. I've seen so many more people starting social clubs in their cities, and just for people to get together. Like, usually qualifications are is for women who are between this age, and they might go to mixers or go to happy hours or have a bowling night. And so you're going to a place where there are strangers, but it's a whole bunch of women. Of course, on my FYP, it's Black women, right? And so Black women across the country are starting so many. They've already been here, right? But I'm just seeing more and more that are popping up all over in a lot of major cities. And so going to those places and introducing yourself, getting numbers, seeing who you connect with, maybe talking to the quiet person in the room versus the one who immediately is the one that's standing out in the social butterfly, right? Because she's probably going to get a whole lot of numbers. And that might be someone that's hard for you to connect with later on, which again, I'm going to come to in the tips very shortly. But yeah, going to those places, meeting people, making connections. One tip that is said often, and then something that's not on here, is finding your hobby and going and doing that all the time. I've said here on the podcast that two of my outside hobbies that I love Lindy Hop, which is a form of swing dancing that I go to all the time. And I've built a really great network and community of people around there. I also love to pickleball. Pickleball is gaining so much popularity. It is so much fun. And you really get to meet some really great people. A little heads up, if you get into the pickleball world, some people are chill about it. Some people are like really snooty. If you're a really good person, you might feel one of the other sides. But look, don't let the people who are like, if you are not a level 3.5 or above, I'm not playing with you, because there are different levels of like between beginner and advanced. Don't let the people who got a lot going on stop you from finding your other people who are there just to have fun, just to be social. I guess like all things, sometimes clicky stuff can happen, but I love that. But my point in bringing up hobbies is, even you going to these brunches, game nights, or whatever, or social clubs, you might need to go several times. You might click with the person, trade numbers. Y'all have a great kiki, and when you reach out, she is not as available as consistently as you would want her to. And that doesn't mean that she's not interested. It doesn't mean that she was being fake. It means that you need to see people multiple times to build real connections with them. And sometimes we wish that we had the same type of easy friendships that we had when we were younger. Like, it used to be so much easier when we were younger, but we had Danielle Ballard Jackson on the podcast before to talk about was it takes 50 hours to make someone a close friend and 80 hours to make someone a best friend. So of course it was easy for you to make friends when you were younger because you were around people 24/7 in school, in classes that you saw them every day. Of course it's easy for you to make really close friendships at work because you're there all the time in the trenches, making it work. These are false indicators of that is so hard to make friends as an adult. No, it takes the same amount of time. It's just spread out. That's the difference. And so if we're going into this with this kind of defeatist attitude or thought process that this isn't working because I've been here 2 or 3 times or even 4 times and we're not going to dinner yet, you might need to give it a few more hours of contact, right? And then also let yourself go to plan up for enough time to do the after events and the pre events and stuff like that. And also, here's what I'll say before I get into the tips. Some of us need to start romancing our friendships in the same ways that we romance our romantic partners. Some of us are very good when it comes to being thoughtful for romantic partners, but when it comes to platonic friends, we got to be a little bit more skeptical. So, for example, I have a new friend and I love her. I think she's amazing. And so she got a new dog recently. She was just casually talking about how the paws are making stains and stuff in the house and stuff. And so I thought, oh, okay, I just saw on TikTok people talk. I don't have a pet, but I saw people using this new paw cleaner thing. So let me go and do that. And I know that she's an outside person. And so I got like this greenish color so that it can go with her decor and everything. And I gave her this gift, right? And we're newer in this friendship. And I gave her this gift and it really meant a lot to her, right? Like that thoughtfulness. And I know that in the past, when it came to romantic partnerships, good old love a girl, pick me, love addicts, whatever term you want to use, when it came to me with previous partners, I would go out of my way to do these little thoughtful things from the beginning and leave little notes and just I'm trying to romance him, right? And so I had to learn how to pull back from because there were a lot of things that went into that. The reasons why I did that, which again are not the topic for this episode, but I had to learn how to redirect that energy on myself and also on other people instead of idolizing these relationships and saving all my love and all of the access to my heart for romantic partnerships, right? And so some of us need to start to learn how to invest that type of energy, that type of dating energy to show interest in someone, because that will also help you progress in your intimacy and your closeness with people if you are actually investing in them outside of just sending texts every once in a while. Of course, showing up is a big deal, but so many of us, our love languages are words of affirmation. So sending cards and stuff to people, our love language are gifts. Our love languages are acts of service. So seeing how you can help somebody out, sending them a DoorDash meal, offering to help clean up if they're going through a hard time and saying, no, girl, you just sit down, I'll come. And when you're there washing the dishes, even if she's like, oh, don't pardon the mess, while you're talking like, girl, I got it. You sit down, like let yourself love these people in the way that you have overloved other people before who have not let you not repaid the same kindness. Right. And this is part of us breaking patterns. So I think that is it for the tips on where to meet people and a little bit of how to cultivate it. Now let's talk about how do we heal in these these circles and friendships and groups that we have so that we do not feel burdened, traumatized, overwhelmed by what is happening or not happening. So like I said, I have 7-ish tips for us for today. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to share is have patience, but there's an addendum to that, a reason why I'm telling you to have patience. I'm telling you to have patience, not necessarily because of the time, but because some people have set friend groups. And this is going to kind of lead into the second one. So I might start talking about the second one, and I'll identify that when I do. Some people have set friend groups. Why is this an issue? Because people's social groups are already packed. They already have a routine. They already have the people. They already have their group chats, right? They already have their set times. And so people who already have their set friend groups, I used to think up until very recently that meant that, oh, close for capacity, right? That you're not going to be able to get in there. But I have learned, taking my own advice, that sometimes it just takes time. Sometimes it's not, it's that people truly like you. They truly enjoy you when they do get to see you, but you're not on their radar, not because they don't think you would fit into the friend group. It's not because they don't think that, they don't want to spend extra time with you. It's just that in the world of adulting, we already have so many things in our head. And if we already have a set social routine, like I get together with my friends on this night, and these are the people that I talk to you about this. It seems like the circuit is closed, but it's really not. They just don't know that you are a contender. And they just don't know what it looks like for you to be there. So some people may be like, turn off with it by this. Some of our trauma things, especially, might be triggered because it might feel like you're fighting to be seen and you're fighting for a place. I would really just want to encourage you to reframe that as simple as people are busy. And also the words that I've already used, that sometimes it's just that people already have routines, and to charge it to reflexive of habits versus it being about a hard thing and it being that you're not good enough or you're not wanted, which is where a lot of us go, which is why so many of us are wanting to be in community to heal. Like, you're doing the internal work already to heal all these rejection wounds and abandonment wounds. But then every time you try to connect with people, is re-triggered again, right? So you're kind of in this catch-22, and you're hoping and praying that the friends that you meet just organically will become your folks, but that doesn't work. So let me get into number 2 to talk about why that doesn't work. That doesn't work because when it's that we find someone out in the wild who is another equally lovely, funny, talented, ambitious, funny, whatever it is that we are looking for in a friend, we find that person. She's amazing, right? Like, we might even have brunch a few times. We might even hang out a couple of times, but she doesn't already have an established friend group. With these people, my second tip is for you to keep your eyes open for that, because I am not saying that she is, okay, I'm just going to say it plainly. There is a reason why she is writing solo dolo right now. That's not me saying she's toxic, and that's not me saying that she's going to end up hurting you. I'm saying that she does not currently know how to, because she probably just doesn't have access to it. This is not even me blaming her, because might be many of you who are listening to this episode right now. Like, we are in this together, right? She does not currently have access to what it looks like to have a very deep, close friendship, best friend circle currently. So she has her own habits. She has her own routines. She has her own mechanisms that she might do if or when that she is triggered in a friendship or in a relationship that might look like distancing techniques. Sometimes it's just that people don't have the chance to practice what it looks like to build in friendships. Sometimes we are finding people who may come in saying, yeah, I'm working on trying to be less avoidant. I'm working on trying to build friendships because it's been hard for me. And just like I've told you, when it comes to your relationships with men, we have to listen to what people say when they're telling us about themselves. So if she's saying she's working on her avoidance, if she's saying that she has problem with friendships, then you need to listen to that and believe that until she proves otherwise. You can still be cheering her on. You can still be hoping that it is different for the two of you. You can still be coming for your best self. But until she starts to show and provide that she is able to work through conflict, that she is able to initiate hanging out with you, that she's able to put down her plans to prioritize being with you or prioritize building friendship, right? Because some of us, when I talk about the different archetypes of avoidance specifically, one of the archetypes I talk about are ladies who are purpose driven. And I talk about, with all the archetypes, I always say that they all have really great components to them. But there could be some really great functional things that are in the extreme. So for my ladies who are purpose driven, it's exactly what it sounds like. You are about your craft, your purpose, your business, the things that you're here to do in the world. You have your goals, and it's really incredible. And you might even be soaring with other people, running parallel with the people in your life. But that purpose is priority. And so often there's very little time for intimate relationships. And you may say, okay, I'm going to make more space for relationships when this thing happens, or when this person happens, or when I'm done with this, or when I get more rest, or whatever. And that time doesn't come. And so someone who is avoidant and purpose driven, she has to be at a place where she is ready to aggressively set aside time to build and nurture these friendships and relationships alongside with being purpose driven, because that is not a phase. It's going to be how you are forever. So she has to be at a place where she's ready to do that. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I've heard a gajillion times how women will find another woman who they love and there's mutual love there. And then something will happen and they are miffed at how quickly and fast this person left. Or nothing happened at all, but they were just hanging out and this person is not as available as much as she would want them to be. Like she was expecting that after you pass this initial, getting to know you, we've built trust, we've built rapport. Just like in a romantic relationship, you would expect that the frequency that you would hang out would change and increase. You would expect that the depth that you would talk would get deeper, right? But that's not happening with her. It's still like the same cadence, if not less. And that's very frustrating. And so that's why I mentioned looking at people who have already good friend groups, not ruling that out because that shows they already know and have the muscle memory on what it looks like to be a good friend. If they already know how to regularly hang out with a good group of healthy people, by the way, I didn't qualify that. Like these should be people who are checking in on each other. These should be people who, throw birthday parties for each other. These should be people who, have healthy group chats, and they give each other good advice for partners and stuff. You only want to be friends with people who have or you want to prioritize. I'm not going to say only because again, I know many of us are on this path of getting to this place. And I want to make sure that I'm not communicating that you have to be the certain level of pristine, pure, never getting triggered and always saying the right thing and Pollyanna, Sesame Street, is all love all the time. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if you're here and you're listening because you're trying to learn how to choose healthier friendships, I'm giving you the tips right now. I'm giving you real good tea right now on what to look out for. And it's up to you how you want to integrate it and use it. But yeah, you want to look for people who already know how to be a good friend because with those relationships, there will be an increase in seeing each other. Or if because we have certain limits when it comes to time and what's available to us, maybe it's that you might not see each other as often, but the depth when you do see each other, that's what grows, right? So you start to feel that more. So yeah, tip number 2 is find people who already have a good track record of friendships. Otherwise, set your relationships, set your expectations appropriately and allow yourself to be surprised, right? But also don't treat these people, please be mindful to not treat people who come in saying, yeah, I don't really have a lot of friends and stuff. Like, don't turn up your nose at them. Don't shift your energy because people can feel your energy even if you don't say anything. People can feel when you're judging them. It's just like, oh, okay, she's growing, I'm growing, because you're also coming in here looking for friendships too, right? So let's be humble. Let's be honest about where we all are with the same self-acceptance and self-kindness we're going to give ourselves, we're going to give to other people, but we're going to see through clear glasses, not rose-colored glasses. Okay. Number 3 is again, have patience, but trust that you will grow together with those who are good for you. You have to put your trust in something or someone outside of other people. So what do I mean by that? I think just like as a love addict, when it came to romantic relationships, I had traditionally in the past had this view of when I meet the person, when I get my ring, when I da, then something in me is going to feel better. I'm finally going to be able to relax, right? And I'm going to be able to trust that this is something that I can call safe. So I think we can have that same type of anxiety in worship when it comes to creating female friendships and sisterhood. And again, for a good reason, especially if you've been wanting and trying and investing and trying to have really good, healthy friendships for your whole life. And you're blessed to have had a longer life. Like at some point, people tell you to be patient, it gets old, right? And it stops being something that you hope for to something that you deeply desire, that you crave, that you yearn for, right? And so having some measured expectations when it comes to that is really hard because it's like the one thing that you really, really want. And so when you have that type of energy, though, if or when there may be slights or interpretations, so where you feel like someone is rejecting you, abandoning you, not saying that you're not good enough, or, choosing to keep you at a certain distance, it will hurt even more. And so what I'm trying to say for point number 3, or what I am saying for point number 3, is instead of putting your trust and faith in this next person that you just met, you just met Latasha, right? And you are really clear with each other, you connected. So you have a lot of hope that this could be your person. You got to shift away from this person being your answer. You have to shift towards if you are someone who believes in a higher power, believes in, spirit, energy, whatever it is for you. The language that I use is I just believe and I know that God loves me and I attracts love to me because God is in me and I have access to love at all times. And this person is just a manifestation of the love that I always have. And I can always call into the masculine energy and feminine energy of God that I want. And then I'm feeling it right now as I'm talking, as teaching this right now, so I have access to that friendship, platonic, deep, agape love, all versions of that right now. And everyone around me is a manifestation of that versus if or when these people are not around, I don't have access to it. But that doesn't mean I'm not in gratitude for every physical representation and body of friendship that I have. Absolutely. But my access to friendship is not based on one or two people. If or when those relationships are gone, absolutely it's heartbreaking. Absolutely, you cry and you grieve, but they are not my only source, if that makes sense. So for me, in spiritual terms, that works for me. For those who are not spiritual or, there's nothing about that language that you can convert to being close to yours, like it's more of an internal drive, then you can just know and embody, I am love. I'm the one who gets to control what comes in and what goes out. I'm the one who gets to control my thoughts and I get to choose that my story is one that is based in love. And so I get to have love at all times. And you can use some of the same language actually that what I just said is I get to see and experience love in all forms. And I'm so grateful for that. And this person that I'm really connecting with is just one source of that. But there's an abundant and infinite amount of sources in this world. And I'm going to be in the moment when I'm with her. I'm not going to say, well, let me not get attached because what if she leaves me? Because then I'm manifesting her exit. I'm going to be fully here and fully grateful every time she's here. And I'm also going to be open to love in all forms at all times because I get to, right? So, yeah, just shifting your focus from other people to yourself, to God, to your higher power, to tree spirits, whatever it may be that works for you is where I would suggest for you to go. Hey, we hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. Let's take a quick break to say thanks to this week's sponsors. So I am now a couple of months into my Skims journey as a newbie, and I'm still kind of sold. You may remember how last month I shared how I tried the Fits Everybody collection by Skims that focuses on the best comfort intimates and found them so soft, stretchy, and comfortable. I loved how they fit so well under my outfit seamlessly, and they also came in so many shades. I got several that were so great for skin matching and fitting the vibe of whatever I was wearing. The triangle bralette is still my favorite. It's the perfect shape for me, super lightweight and surprisingly supportive as I have a lot to carry up here. And I forget that I'm wearing it, but it's the perfect addition to my loungewear as well. The Fits Everybody collection is available in sizes extra, extra small to 4X, and you can shop now at skims.com and Skims stores. After you place your order, be sure to let them know I sent you. Select podcast in the survey and be sure to select my show in the drop down menu that follows. Number 4, the tip for as you're healing in community and building your sisterhoods and your friendships to buffer any triggers and things that may happen as you're growing is to remember that other people's reactions truly have nothing to do with you. Truly have nothing to do with you. Okay? So I was at a group call for my recovery school coaching program recently, and we were talking about friendships. And one of the students, she was sharing an incident of what happened with a friend who had basically gone ghost on her. She was telling what had happened and, really wondering, did I say or do something that offended her? And, she ran through the whole scenario. She talked to all these other people about it. And this person on the other end, like to me, it sounded like nothing happened. To other people, it sounded like nothing happened. To her therapist, it sounded like the therapist gave her feedback around, her reactions have to do with her because this person just stopped responding to her altogether. Now, the person is still alive. The person is still looking at her stories. Like this person is up, right? Like she just tapped out. So here's the thing. Even if you do say or do something, someone else's response, especially if it's extreme, like the whole complete, there had never been any conflict, there had never been any issues. They were besties until who knows what happened. That person completely disappearing and discarding you has everything to do with them. There's nothing about if I would have been nicer, if I would have been more thoughtful, if I would have been able to communicate better, then she would not have felt the need to do this. She learned how to run and flee in that way from someplace. And that is her go-to. And so it's up to her to want to be open to learn how to work through conflict. Let's say there was something that did happen, right? Something that for her felt very legitimate. Her response and her refusal to communicate, to allow you the ability to support, to come back in. Because even my client, my student, this person wasn't responding, but getting all the messages are still delivered. My client even apologized. Like if I did something, because she still doesn't know what happened. If I did something, I just want to say I'm so sorry, I hope that you can forgive me. And I'm totally open to working through it if you ever want to reach back out. Like she's given the most gracious answers and still trying to look at herself, and this person's not open. And so you cannot personalize how deep someone's detachment, and I'm going to say this word, even though I know it might apply to some of us, because some of us is this person, some of us are the ghoster. The dysfunction that some folks have learned and are still in, that is for them to work out. Okay. So you have to own your part. If you have done your part and you've taken ownership of your part, that's all you can do. You cannot overcompensate for someone's lack of intimacy skills and refusal to move forward. Okay. Which is why, again, you want to make sure that you're practicing with people who are healthier. And it might seem like it takes more time, but it'll be more worth it. Number 5, related to that, and related to all of them really, is that you can't make fetch happen. I keep having this phrase come up, and I feel like we're at a place now where if you're not a millennial and older, there's less likelihood that people understand what this means, which makes me really sad that people don't know this Mean Girls reference. But you can't make someone be a level of friend that you want them to be if that's not where they are or what they want. Some of us have someone who we consider someone that we want to have in our inner circle. They might actually be in our inner circle. They may be someone who is like on best friend level, but that is not who we are to them. So I'm going around saying such and such is one of my best friends. And she's saying, "Oh no, we're just friends." Yeah, no, or she's talking about me as if we are casual friends, as we're close friends, maybe, but not best friends, right? So think about how you currently or in the past have talked to people who are your best friends, people who are your inner circle, the things that you share with them. Now think about people who at your job or some other place you're cool with, right? But they're not your best friends. They're not your work bestie. They're not even people that you would elect to go to lunch with. You don't dislike them. They're just whatever. What are the things that you share with them versus your best friend, right? So those are 2 different levels of intimacy and access. So sometimes what happens is in the same way that we may chase men or women who are unavailable romantically, we will have a potential friend that is consistently giving signs and shutting down our attempts to try to go deeper with them. But we keep trying to make it happen. We keep trying to invest to make this deep, intimate friendship work. And this person is showing by actions, deeds, or words that they want, and they only have capacity to keep you at a close, casual friendship level. And that's about it. And so you have to redirect yourself to find people who are available for you. Stop going after people who don't want to be there. So this can be confusing, as I'd like to circle it back to what I was saying at the beginning, that it takes time to build friendships. So how do you know if if it's just that you're under your 50-hour threshold of someone being your best friend versus even if you had 100 hours, this person would still keep it very light, tight, and superficial with you. This person would not be gradually moving things around to spend more time with you, to help you out. Like you're always going to be a casual friend to them. Well, you can see as you start to put out, and I'm not telling you to test people, because some of us need to get out of this kind of testing cycle and just be yourself and see what happens. Just be who you are authentically, communicate who you are authentically. Because when you get into testing people, it gets very gamey, and other people, one, you don't want to be in relationships where there's games, period. That's exhausting. Some of us, our childhood trauma is filled with emotional games of Battleship and Monopoly and Uno, and like games that we could never win. The cards were stacked against us. And so we just carry those habits into adulthood, thinking that we're being wise, but really you're just continuing to stress your nervous system and making your relationships harder than they need to be. We want to get to a place where we are walking easily and flow into the world, being ourselves and just attracting people who are also in ease and flow. And they can be themselves, and we can all communicate and be sisters and grow and help each other and love easily. That's what you want. That's what you want. If you like games, go get into video games, go into board games, go watch traders on TV, go audition for Survivor, go do something to where you can get that little itch out, because some of us do like that kind of stuff. But I do not suggest for you to bring those games into your deep, intimate friendships and relationships, because it will only be a recipe for disaster, and you will always be in the place of one-upping people, reading their minds when you can't read people's minds, thinking that you're very clear on people's intentions and why they did things and why they want to do things, when you're not always clear why you do things, right? And I've said this again many times on the podcast, that sometimes you think, especially if you have very good discernment, you think that your intuition is 100% spot on. And sometimes your trauma is just as loud and feels just as visceral as your discernment. And so sometimes you don't know that what you think you know is not true, but you'll still act on it. So I do not suggest you gamify your relationships. But if you go into building a friendship with someone and you share something that's really intimate, and you ask and they kind of skirt the issue, then pay attention to that. Pay attention that this is someone who doesn't really want to go deeper. You might even ask, hey, wait, is this something that you don't want to talk about? And instead of you making up in your mind that that's what it is, like maybe there's someone who's used to talking about other people. Like that's something that I can say myself. My whole profession is listening to other people and hearing their stories and hearing their traumas. So it is very easy for me to turn things back around on people. I've had to learn it as a skill to be open. Now, with that said, even though I've learned it as a skill, there are some relationships that you don't need to know. Like you don't need to know, and it's not because I don't know that I'm not sharing. No, I've actively chosen to keep it from you, right? And that's okay, because we all get to choose who we allow to have in our inner circles. And so, but pay attention to that. Pay attention if you've asked follow-up questions to make sure that, they intentionally just don't want to share this, then okay, now I know that this is the level of vulnerability that this person is available for. What does that mean for me? Do I want to keep sharing these level of things with them? Or do I want to redirect how deep I go when I talk about my personal life with this person? Do I need to find other people to share things with? Because I do want to get these things out. And this is a person that's showing that this isn't really the case for that, or this isn't the place for that. Okay. So yeah, just pay attention. This is also why I created the How to Pick Partners workbook, which is not just for romantic relationships, it's for friendships too. The literal subtitle of the book is How to Assess for Friends, Family, and Lovers Who Are Available for Love. Because all the qualifiers there, the levels of availability, which I did a little bit of a shout out today when I talked about best friend level versus close friend level, and then there's stranger level, and there's all these other things. We talk about that in the book. And so you may need to be doing quarterly assessments of your friendships and your relationships just to see where everybody is, to see where you are with them as well, to see if maybe you're the one who's being avoidant or detached, and are you okay with that? Speaking of that, number 6 is if you have been feeling avoidant in your relationships, it may mean that you need to take more time for yourself. Okay. Now, this might sound very weird and contradictory, but here's where I'm going with this. And again, take what you need, leave the rest. Other therapists who are listening, you might be like, oh, that makes sense. Or you might be like, I wouldn't say that myself. And that's okay. Here's my current theory as of the time that I'm recording it. as someone who has in the past also been a chronic overgiver, people pleaser, got to show up for people, I think. Sometimes as a recovering avoidant, there can be a whole lot of pressure to go and show up for things. So I noticed that for me, I have swung back and forth between the two pendulums of I'm going to go focus solely on myself and go insular and take care of me. But that's more about detachment stuff. And I'm just kind of being busy, 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 but I'm not actually taking time with myself. And then the other extreme of that is I am focusing on showing up for other people. So I'm showing up at all the things. I said I was going to go. I said I was going to do this. I said yes. And so following up with that. But in both of those examples, neither one am I pouring into me. So even if I show up for people, I'm resentful because then other things get left behind. I am drained. I am burnt out. In the first example of I'm like staying busy, I may not have time for friendships, but I'm busy, busy, busy. I'm still avoiding my relationship with myself. I'm still avoiding my self-care. I'm just going through the motions. If you are at a place where you want to build friendships with other people, or you're feeling like really drained and tired, like you're just thinking, I got to go outside, I got to talk to people, I got to da 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 da. I would encourage you to look at how are you currently treating yourself? Do you have routines in place that make you feel rejuvenated and you know how to soothe yourself? Do you feel rested? Are you taking care of your body? Are you doing things that bring you pleasure? Right? Are you speaking to yourself with love out loud? Are you doing mirror work? Are you journaling? Are you doing things that are replenishing your soul and your mind and your body and your spirit every day? Because it may be that it's hard for you to show up places because even if your schedule is busy, your tank is empty. So you really truly have nothing to give. So it's not that you're being avoidant, you're just tired. You're tired. I think a lot of us avoidant people are misdiagnosing ourselves because we know where our brain can go. We know that we have in the past and maybe currently are cutting people off, right? But maybe it's just that you're tired, which is also maybe why your fuse is so short because you have nothing to give. You have no patience to give because you're low on love that you're giving to yourself. So this may be one of the few times that I encourage my avoidance to continue to go within. Because if you're being avoidant in your relationship with yourself, you got to start with yourself. Here is the order of relationships that you need to prioritize when it comes to breaking your cycles of intimacy disorders. Your first one is your relationship with yourself. You bring her everywhere you go. The second one is your relationship with your friendships. And the third one is your relationship with your romantic partners. Okay. Because your romantic partner will hopefully be your friend. And if you do not know how to build and cultivate friendships with other people, it's going to be very, very hard to do that with a partner. Actually, let me take that back. Some people, some of you, your love story may have already been or will be that when you find a person, they became your best friend. Like it was so easy. It was so easy. And if or when you go through life with one person being your only friend, that's a lot of pressure for both of y'all. Because what happens when one or both of you are having bad days, when you are mad at each other, when what used to be your shared interest is no longer a shared interest anymore because one of you stops liking it. If or when children come around and now you have stressors and you're feeling like enemies a little bit at different points in time, depending on how y'all share the household work or whatever it may be, right? So I would still encourage you. Part of your fantasy is to find that person where it all makes sense and they become your best friend and you become little homebodies together. You still try to focus on finding friendships today to know how to be a good friend to your future partner. But more so, y'all, more so is because you deserve to have good friendships. You deserve to have good connections. All right. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. I would love for you to join our free newsletter because I do hope to have more events. Not I do hope to. I plan to have more social events where people can get together, meet people who are already familiar with the Black Girls Heal podcast and things that we talk here. So they're already into self-help and becoming better people and breaking out of their insecure avoidant attachment styles and love addiction, love avoidance, and they understand these relationship patterns. So not only social events, of course, the retreats, which we have one coming up this fall, and that there are still a few spots open for. So we'd love for you to join just to stay updated and connected. So you can join by going to blackgirlsheal.org/list. And I hope that you found these tips helpful. I hope that your sisterhood connections that you build are that much better now that you know that it's okay how to create some distance for some places, but still be open in others, and to give it a little bit more time and space, and maybe to pursue some friendships that you would not have pursued before because you thought that the door was closed, but really those might have been the exact people for you to reach out to. And here's what I'll say about that, because even though there are definitely positive experiences where you can try to connect to someone who already has an established friend group, there absolutely are the cases where some people are like, I only have capacity for this, no new friends, right? If this is a good and healthy person, even you hanging out with them, let's say you only get to do a few brunches with them. Let's say you only get to, go to Friendsgiving once or twice a year and then maybe see them over the summer. These healthy people, by you learning about how they show up in the world, talking with them, it is still iron sharpening iron. So yeah, they might not be your bestie for the restie. They might not be your sister from another mister. They may not be someone who's, you can look back and say, we've been best friends for 15 years and you're taking annual girl trip together. They might not be your person, but that doesn't mean that this friendship is not valuable. It doesn't mean that you're not growing. It doesn't mean that it's not giving both of you things. So don't live in the black and white and say, unless someone is my best friend or they want to be best friends, then I'm not interested. It is okay to have multiple different people, multiple different friends and types of friends and friend groups as you are on the search to find your people or your person. And you might be surprised. It may come from areas and in situations that you least expected. Okay? So that is it for now. I'm sending you all so much love, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. As always, take care of yourselves. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Before we get started, let's take a small break to say thank you to this week's sponsors.